like about WordPress website is malware. I work for WordPress. I'm a malware guy.
Awesome.
I'm not gonna throw any shade here.
Okay. Okay. Well, I'm gonna be looking at you if I'm like I'm gonna like need some backup here.
All right. Andy?
I like WordPress, right? So the community behind it, like, just the amount of support.
Yeah, there's a lot of support.
I'm Grant. I'd like to know more about WordPress, and I actually dragged Brock and Connor over here because I was interested in some vulnerability talk. So
Okay. Cool. I'm glad that this talk got you to come in then, because that was the whole thing, was clickbait to try to get people to show up so that I could tell you all to sign up to be speakers. So, over there.
I'm Bradley, fairly new WordPress, Brock dragging here, and I use it.
Awesome. Cool. 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 Lots of faces, lots of people. Well, with all that out of the way, then let's dig into this. So this talk, I made it all up. It's original first time talk, so bear with me. It did say in the emails on the meetup site that we were going to do plugins, themes, and WordPress core. There's a thing with themes, though. Finding themes with vulnerabilities is not hard. Finding free themes with vulnerabilities is kind of hard, just because all of the themes that vulnerabilities get reported on are paid themes that you get from like Theme Forest or Envato, or the same place, right? So, and even if you do pay for those themes, you don't necessarily get the old versions of those themes that have the exploits. You get the latest version where all the exploits have been patched. And those do me no good for this talk because we're going to try hacking a website, and I'm not going to try and hack a patched website. So, in place of a theme, I threw another plugin in there, one that has another. We're going to try and stay out of jail tonight. So, so our site is just a VM spun up with VirtualBox. Well, it's spun up with Vagrant. Vagrant is a command line based tool for creating new virtual machines. It's super handy because they've got shared directories built into it. But if you're already using local by Flywheel, then I wouldn't recommend switching to Vagrant because it's essentially the same thing. They're both built on top of VirtualBox, I believe. So using that API. So I use Vagrant because local or Flywheel hasn't released a Linux client for local yet, so I'm still using Vagrant, I guess. And I do some other stuff with things that are not necessarily WordPress too. So it's a good general purpose tool for spinning up new environments. I'm using a box, that's what they're called with Vagrant, from called VVV. That's from the agency 10up. They're a WordPress development agency. If you have heard WordPress mentioned before, you've maybe heard their names. They're a pretty big deal. I think they spun it off and it's now supported by the community. But if you're spinning up WordPress sites and you're using Vagrant, VVV is the way to go because it's super simple. You say VVV create and it just kind of follow the instructions. Type in your host name and everything. So VVV spins up an Nginx site. This one is running on Ubuntu 14. You'll notice WordPress 4.7 is not the latest version of WordPress, and that's because we're hacking it, right? So this is a hack. This is an older version. I don't know how to hack 5.0. I'm just not that good. So the other changes that have been made to the site, we've enabled permalinks, which will matter in some of the code, but with or without permalinks enabled, these hacks would still work. So I've removed the default plugins, the Kismet and Hello Dolly. We took those out. I installed the 2015 theme because originally I was going to try and show a vulnerability from that theme, but I think Firefox is being a little pain and is like filtering out my stuff when I try submitting it, so it doesn't work there. So instead, we're using WP Job Manager and another plugin called LogonIser. Now, keep in mind these are older versions of these plugins. They're not super old, especially the LogonIser one. I want to say that the version that I'm running is maybe 2 or 3 months old. But the WP Job Manager one, that was a little bit older. And then obviously WordPress 4.7 is a bit older as well. So, that So some of the tools that we're going to use then, the first tool that I want to make a note of is called WP Scan. If you are trying to penetrate or trying to test a WordPress site, penetration testers for WordPress almost always recommend WP Scan. It's a Ruby-based tool, so you can download it. It's free from, I want to say it's the Security team that manages it. But you can download this. This is a terminal-based tool, so if you're not comfortable in the terminal, you know, it might take a little bit of configuring and tweaking, but for the most part, it's pretty straightforward. How WP Scan works is it scans your website by digging through through common folder structures that it knows WordPress has, and it then looks for files within those, and it will find readmes. It will tell you all of the plugins that are installed, most of the plugins that are installed. It'll tell you the theme that's installed, and then the version of WordPress that's installed. It'll find users that are on the site. So it's going to dig up all the information, and you can do more intrusive scans with WP Scan. For the sake of simplicity, I'll show you a very simple version of this. Can everybody see this okay? So this is a terminal. If you're not familiar with it, don't be freaked out. I'm not going to spend too much time in there. But like I said, WP Scan is super simple. The site that I spun up is called hack.test. And so I'm going to run WP Scan and just show you how this works. Not only does it scan all of those things, but after scanning them, it then cross-references what it has found with the WP vulnerability database, which are all posted. You know, when somebody discloses a vulnerability that they found with a WordPress plugin, it then gets posted to this WP Vuln DB, where people are saying, hey, you know, these are out there, update your plugins, this is what's happening. So here's a little bit of information. Didn't find any backups or configs. 52 requests it did. Took 7 seconds to scan our site. If you're looking here, I'll scroll way up here, but you're seeing a lot of vulnerabilities, and that's because I'm running an old version of WordPress. In total, we have, still scrolling, 50 vulnerabilities found for WordPress 4.7. So if you haven't updated your WordPress site in 2 years, you've been pwned. Plain and simple. That's just for 4.7. I'm not going to spend too much time showing you all of these things, but this is a great way to find if your site has any vulnerabilities available, any that have been disclosed anyways, because it's always possible that there's a vulnerability that hasn't been disclosed, which is called a 0-day. You'll also see, once we scroll way back down, we've got the theme here. It's telling us the latest version of the theme, 2.3. It's found one vulnerability. This is the one that I was going to try to get working with this theme, but ended up giving up because I was spending too much time on it. And then it's told us plugins that it has found. It found 3 vulnerabilities for WP Job Manager, and it did not find the other plugin. So I mean, it's not perfect, but it's a great tool if you're trying to learn about your site. I run this on our site for the company that I work for often enough to see if anything is going wrong. It's not bad to do it every now and then, but if you're worried about your analytics data or something, then maybe lay off of it. So okay, so that's one tool, right? And that's kind of all. I just wanted to show that one. I don't know if we'll be doing much with that after this, but another tool that we're going to be using a lot of is called Postman. And Postman is used for API development, and it's great because it lets you create your request in this nice, beautiful GUI, and then if you're paying for the premium subscription to it, you can then save those requests and share them with your team. And so if you're doing any sort of API development, definitely take a look at Postman. I've also found that it's been useful for chatbots. If you're ever working on a chatbot, like with Facebook Messenger or WhatsApp. Does WhatsApp have chatbots? Anyways, that's another useful place since you're talking to an API somewhere. So Postman will be, I'll show you that one here pretty quickly. And then obviously you've all seen the terminal. I'm a Linux fanboy. I spend a lot of time in the terminal. That's where I'm most comfortable. Whenever a GUI gets spun up in front of me, it's just like, okay, can't we just do this with like a couple commands? I don't like to leave the keyboard if I don't have to. So those are what some of the tools I didn't put on here, but the text editor that I'll be using is Sublime Text 3. Some people are PHP Storm fanatics, Rob, and other people like other simpler things. So yeah, if you guys have any questions or are confused about like something that I just did, and they're like, wait, what is that? What are you doing? Throw your hand up. We'll address that. So. Okay, so the plugin, the first plugin. Like I said, WP Job Manager is the plugin that we're going to be taking a look at. Here you can see our WordPress site running the 2015 theme, and I haven't done much to it. It's pretty simple, pretty straightforward. We've got a test post and a basic theme. We'll come over here. Has anybody in here used WP Job Manager before? No? So WP Job Manager is a job board plugin created by Automatic, which is the company behind WordPress. We use it for posting our own jobs at our company, and so we've had to restrict it a bit because its intended use is like for posting job boards. So if you wanted someone to come to your website and say, hey, we have jobs available at this company, we'll post them here on your site, and people can just go do that pretty easily and quickly. You'll see that we've got, it creates a couple pages in it. The job dashboard, the jobs, and then this post a job page. Post a job page is the one that we're going to be looking at because that's the form where jobs get posted. Like I said, we are using this. We were using this at our company, and this is the plugin that what's wrong? Inspired me to do this talk because I was, as you'll see the hack here. Right, so I'm signed in as the admin, and you can restrict this to various user roles. You can say anyone can post a job. You can say only logged in users can post a job. You can change the pages, do all of these fun things. You'll see a bunch of the fields here. You've got the job title, the location of the job, job description, an email, company name, website, blah, 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 Twitter, and then a logo, right? So this is where we're going to focus, is on this logo. I'm going to mention it right now. This talk might not be entirely safe for work. Just a quick out there, because if you see what we have here, if you are interested in seeing what the hack is, you can Google this phrase. It's not going to pull up anything like super detrimental on your computer, I promise. I'll do it here on mine just to prove the point. Google's not my default search engine, so I'll have to switch. And then we're going to copy this. Nope. Okay, can't copy that. Just come here, and so this is the hack. Yeah, okay. So what we're looking at here, Google has their spiders that they send out, and they crawl the web, right? Clever name, right? Crawls the web with spiders. And so if you did that search where we searched in the URL, what you're going to find is a bunch of sites. Basically every site that has ever run this plugin that Google has crawled. And you're going to see a bunch of things like this This is the one that I've been to, so I'm actually going to go back because I don't know what we're going to find then. Just to keep it as safe for work as possible. We'll go to this one. This one I've been to. Right, and so when we dig into this a little bit deeper, and keep in mind, I'm showing you this because this happened to a site that I was on. What are we finding? We're finding file upload structures here. And there's a GIF, just one GIF buried in here. Oh no, we've been hacked by the general. So, well, not us, these people at uniteddev.com. Whether they know that this is on their site, I have no idea. We could tell them, but we could spend all day telling people from Google search results that their sites were hacked. So, this general person, team, crew, or whatever, this is funny because this exact image was actually found on one of our sites. So it's very obvious that this is an automated process, and it's a super simple process to automate, especially when you can just crawl Google, get a list of sites that have been hacked and all have various things in there. So for the sake of keeping it as safe for work as possible, I'll just, does everybody kind of follow what's happening with these? Then there's other ones that show more images. Some people have more severe hacks that have happened to them, but oh no, the general hacked this one too. He's all over the place. Got some sort of super hacker. Dark Shadow. Right, and sometimes they have like contact information. They're like, hey, if you want to clean this up, email me or check out my Facebook page. And so, right,
so is this how you get like your street cred as a hacker when you're coming up, like an amateur hacker? You're
yeah.
Like, man, I want to like get.
I want to make my name known.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. I'm just gonna put it on as many sites as possible.
Sweet.
Right. So this is obvious. It's super automated, right? You could. It's not difficult to script this hack, especially when I show you the hack. So this was one of those vulnerabilities that we found that was mentioned in the WP scan results. So I'm going to close this one here. It's really weird looking behind me to find where I need to go. And so this is the vulnerability, unauthenticated arbitrary file upload. This is the initial disclosure here, but we won't go there because that person uses not nice language sometimes. And this is the release for the update, which we also don't need to go to because we have WP Job Manager installed over here. Right. And so, does anybody have any ideas or guesses as to what is happening? Anyone? WordPress? You got any ideas? No? Nobody's got anything?
I mean, obviously they're FTPing something up, but they have to get FTP access somehow, so I'm guessing there's something embedded in the plugin that gives them, I don't know, like backdoor into the server to upload to a very specific part of the site?
Close, but FTP is not involved at all. If you saw with the plugin had that whole company logo thing in the form, right? That's the part that's being hit. And if you read that disclosure, it was unauthenticated arbitrary file upload. So what is happening here is it's right here. We've got this WP Ajax Job Manager upload file. So what you can see here is that Job Manager has created their own Ajax endpoints, and that lets them and that lets other plugins kind of hook into getting the right data, right? And so they can say, all right, we'll just register these endpoints, and that way if we ever update our code, you know, we just have to query the endpoint and say, hey, give us that data that we want.
Question from Jimmy Hogaboom. Are these images visible on the hacked website, or are they just stashed away in these folders?
So how I found that our site had been hacked was some routine maintenance on our site. We have another plugin that doesn't like to cooperate and that I sometimes have to give a little nudge in the right direction. So I was in there tweaking this plugin and then just kind of clicking around, seeing what else I find via my FTP thing. When I found all of these uploads just kind of hiding in the, I was like, oh, I didn't realize Job Manager had all these different uploads because we don't upload anything to it. So I go digging through there and you find all of those things. They are visible from that URL. So if you go to hack.test/WP content, WP Job Manager, uploads, whatever, you will see it. They're not necessarily visible on the front end of the website just because they're not being linked to anywhere. And they're also not visible in your media library for WordPress because it's in a custom path. You know, it's in that Job Manager path. It's not in your uploads folder necessarily because it's uploads and WP Job Manager uploads. So there's two different ones. So.
And also, for those of you that don't know, whenever you upload something to the Media Manager, it actually creates a custom post type, like inserts a custom post for the custom post type images or media or whatever. And so without that record, it wouldn't show up in the Media Manager anymore. Right. Yep. Yeah. So that part never happens.
Right. And so even if you're logged into your admin interface, you might not see that all these images are on there. And so that's kind of the whole thing. But back to these Ajax points here. So is this the other one? Whoops, that's too far. Can everybody see this okay? Yeah? Right, so we've got these upload file Ajax calls. And essentially what those are doing is they're just calling this upload file function. So when you hit one of those Ajax endpoints, it's going to call this upload file function, which we will then take a look at here, because that's where our problem is at. So here's the function upload file. Right out of the gates, does anyone see anything out of the ordinary? Any developers see anything that they might think could be a problem?
This is in the plugin?
This is in the plugin. Yep. This is the function that gets called when you hit the Job Manager Ajax endpoint for uploading a file. So they've registered their own Ajax endpoints. I won't go into how they did all that because that's going to be on the scope. But this is the function that gets called. Okay. Bam!
There's no nonce check.
There's no nothing.
Yeah.
Check. There's no check. It just looks for the file that's coming through. And so that data array files, that's the post, whatever gets posted from the browser. So if you're filling out a form, you type in your name, you type in your email, you type in your description, whatever your comment, and then you hit submit. When you click that submit button, it calls a post request. And it then sends all of that data that you've put in your form in the form of a post request to the server. And the server, at that whatever URL, in this case the Job Manager Ajax endpoint for uploading a file, then takes that and processes it. And so here,
is this plugin available today?
They've patched it since then,
okay.
But this plugin is still available, yes.
Okay.
So I had to go digging through the WordPress subversion repositories to get the older versions, but yes. So anyone can just upload anything, and yeah. So that's as simple as it is that you just have to do that. So let's
you know what that is? So that's people being lazy when they're developing the plugin and not understanding why there's nonces built into WordPress for it. Okay, good question. So a nonce is a randomly generated string of characters, and WordPress has its own little system built into it to generate these automatically and keep track of which ones were generated for which Ajax requests, I guess. And so there's a whole if you learn how to do Ajax for WordPress on your own when you're developing plugins, it's like one of the first things they tell you how to do is like, okay, here's how you like use the action of the hook, and then here's how you generate the nonce, and then here's where you check the nonce in the callback function, so on and so forth. So all that is like super standard. However, with that said, most people are not using the admin-ajax, which is the hook I think they were using here, right?
They've actually created their own.
Their own endpoint?
Yeah.
Using
So they're not using admin Ajax, they're using JM-Ajax. I'll show you here. So it doesn't, it's got all sorts of...
I don't know why you do that, though.
Well, this is automatic, so they do whatever they want, right? So this is
plugin was developed by Automatic?
This is a plugin that was developed by Automatic, the company behind WordPress. So,
wow.
Yeah. So you can understand my frustrations when I found all these hacked files on my site from their plugin.
Why would they circumvent stuff that they already know exists and built?
I don't know, man. Let's ask Matt. Okay, so like I said, oh, you can't really see this here, can you? It's kind of blurry. Essentially, though, these, okay, firstly, let me say, this is Postman, the tool that I was talking about earlier, the one for working with APIs. Super handy tool. As you can see, I've got this folder here for all of the requests that I'm going to try doing. But like I said, it was a post request, so we set this to a post, right? I want to duplicate these requests and basically show you how simple it is to make this hack happen. So our URL is hack.test, and then the Ajax endpoint is jm-ajax, and then the action that I want to call on that endpoint is upload file, and that upload file will then do the function of uploading a file. So what else do I need to provide? I need to provide a file. So we come here, the server is going to request it. It's going to look for the key in post, so it's like $_post brackets file files. That's basically what WordPress is going to see. So we just find a file that we want. And we'll grab this one because this is one that I made especially for this talk. And then we click send, and it's as simple as that to hack our site. See our request here, what we get back from it. And if you can't see, we've been given a URL, and we've been given a file, we've been given a name. Let's, oops, that's not what I want. I want to copy that. Copy? No? Okay. Maybe. So let's come back to our website and let's see the file that we just added. It lives under. So if you remember, I said this was an Nginx server, and Nginx does a better job of locking down directory traversal than Apache does. So I can't actually like do that whole traversal because Nginx is preventing me from doing that. But I have autocomplete, so, and this is not the one that I uploaded. Boom. We hacked a website and we uploaded our own little image, just like the general. The general's got nothing on us because
your graphic is way better than me.
Right? Like if I were into advertising, yeah.
Are there any limitations on file types?
That's such a good question. I'm so glad you asked it. The plugin actually did have limitations on the MIME types. So not necessarily the file types, because the MIME type, for those that don't know, that's what the server is telling. That's what the server is reporting as the file type. Supposedly, with this exploit, you could upload a PHP file or a text file. I couldn't get it to work. I will, if you guys are good, extra good, I'll show you potential how it could be maybe something or other.
Is that something that Nginx handles, like validating?
It might be an Nginx thing.
Or
Yeah, so I didn't try this with Apache because VBV is simple to set up. So it might be different with Apache. You know, mileage may vary there. But yeah, so we hacked this website. We uploaded this file. This is the one that we did. We could upload more. We could sit here and just upload files to my local computer all day if we wanted. But that's not that exciting. Right? It's kind of exciting. If you want to go digging through it, the problem happens line 265 of this class WP Job Manager Ajax, which we already kind of looked at. So the other thing I wanted to show you, I'd mentioned that it was easy to automate this, and so you saw how simple it was to do it in Postman. Postman has this feature that I absolutely loved it for. Right here, this little button. If you can't read that, it says code. And so you click this little guy here, and what has it generated but the curl code needed to do what I just did in Postman. If you don't like curl and you like Go, there's the Go code. If you don't like Go, you're a Java person, you're a Node.js person, you're a PHP person. We all know PHP because we're all WordPress people. Here's how you can do it in PHP. Now Postman kind of injects its own tokens in there, and that's for if you're working with teams and you need to like see on the endpoint that you're accessing the REST API, like if you need to track requests that have been sent. You could delete all that though, and then you can basically just copy paste this code into your script, and if you've got compromised sites elsewhere, then you can run this script on those sites to then go. All it has to do is it has to search Google for all of those compromised things, you know, like we did. Put that in a text file, and then through each one of those lines you iterate through it, and then just upload your file to that. You just hit it at every single one and log whatever you want. So super simple. And that's how people like the General, or what was it, Dark Star, something, Dark Person, that's how they all did those automated hacks. That's how they got their name onto so many different things, you know. So that's one of the other things that I love about Postman. It's so simple.
I didn't know they did that thing.
Yeah. Oh, come back here. Okay. So how do we fix this then? That's what we're really here. We're not here to break into other people's sites. We're here to learn about the mistakes made and then learn how to fix it. Let me pull up. Nope, not this one. This one. Let's pull up. That's our vulnerability. Where's that? Oh, here we go. That's what we wanted. This one. So what did we say? It was an unauthenticated problem? That's what the problem was? Is just we had no authentication in our function.
Yeah, it wasn't doing what you're normally supposed to do, which is the nonce check.
Okay, so here is the commit where they patched the problem on GitHub. So you can go and pull this up yourself if you want. I don't know if you can see this. So here's the upload file function. And what are they doing? At the very beginning, they've added 4 lines. And in it, they're calling this function Job Manager user can upload file via Ajax. Which, if we want to see what that did, tests, is this. So in the WP Job Manager functions.php file, in their already existing functions, they just threw one more function with that exact name. Job Manager user can upload file via Ajax. And then within that one, all it does is it does 2 functions. User logged in and Job Manager user can post job. Because they already had all of this stuff in place. You know, you couldn't go in and submit a form, but you could go in and upload files. Because so they already had all of the infrastructure. They just somebody forgot to add it to the file.
So is this Ajax request specifically designed for the admin area then, or is it for the front end?
I think it's for the front end, because when you submit the job, it gives you a preview too, and then lets you like work on your preview, or if you want to go back and edit it, so you can edit your preview or you can submit it.
You have to create an account in order to use the...
It depends on the settings of the plugin, right? So the plugin, you can say let anyone post a job, and so any Joe Schmo can come to your website and post all the Craigslist scams that they want, or you can set it so that only certain users can post jobs. But right, so how we were using it was so that only certain users could, only people who logged into the site could post jobs. And even then, I only wanted admins to be able to do it. But lo and behold, they weren't checking if people were logged in and uploading images. So it's just it's super simple. It's just all they had to do was check if they could post a job, and it's the same permissions, right? Because you don't want to have to change it. I want people to be able to post jobs, but I don't want them to upload images, or I don't want them to upload images, but I do want them to upload images, but not post jobs. Right? It doesn't make any sense. It's the same thing. So they already had all this infrastructure in place, and all they had to do was call the function that made it happen. And then if everything is kosher, let them upload. So
Well, I don't think they didn't already have it in place if it's new.
this is a new function, but all it's doing is calling two other functions that they had, that they previously had.
Yeah, but it's also allowing you to filter that too.
Yep, right. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're running some of the other filters. So yeah, that is the first hack. You look confused.
I am super confused. I don't know why they would do it this way. It's super crazy.
Well, that's the patch that fixed it. I'm sure they've made more changes to it since then, as they're finding other things, but that is our patch. So, moving on. The theme / the other plugin that we're going to show. So this plugin is called LogonIser, as you can see. And what LogonIser does is it basically checks to see if you have valid login attempts, and if they are invalid login attempts, it then logs them, and it then tells you about them. If you've got more than whatever number of login attempts you've set, then it blacklists an IP address. And so this is the security plugin. Keep that in mind. Let me show you. Okay, so that's LogonIser. 2 attempts left is what it's telling us.
This is a pretty popular plugin, isn't it?
I think a lot of plugins have build this same functionality because it's a pretty simple plugin. So like the iTheme security one, I know does this, and like every security plugin ever has this sort of functionality built in.
Right.
You know, it'll tell you like, oh, you've got a lot of people from Russia trying to log into your site, or something along those lines. So yeah, so that's the plugin, and basically what it does. Let me show you the interface. Yep. LogonIser security dashboard. Go there. Simple stuff. Nothing too hardcore. It tells you a couple odd things, but for the most part, it's pretty simple. The free version is, anyways. I'm going to show you the hack. Let me know when you see it. Oh, I already broke it. So let me do the hack here and then show you, because it's not paying attention. Okay. Now you should see our hack. Oh no, it shouldn't because of this other thing. So, okay. Essentially what this hack is, we'll just go through it together and take a crack at hacking this site. We got our logs cleared. You still cannot see that, can you? Hard for me to see it too. that over here. Okay, cool. Now our hack should be live. No, maybe not. That might have something to do with it here. So, there we go. I'll delete these guys. Like I said, I love Postman, right? Except Postman has this weird thing where they encode the URLs and don't properly do what you tell it to do. So we come back here. Let me just drop this in. And now our site should be hacked. Of course I say that, but who knows? There it is. So if you can't read that, like what? Anybody recognize what that is? No. That is a. Yeah, that's a JavaScript Alert Box, which is, if anybody, we have JavaScript developers. Anyone? JavaScript 1, 2, 3. Okay, so JavaScript is a client-side programming language used for doing things like alert boxes or moving things around on your web page, or doing all sorts of fancy code. Essentially, it's code that you run in the user's browser. And now, the problem with running code in the user's browser is that sometimes you screw up, or if someone can get bad code on your server, and your server is then showing them that code, they can do bad things to more people. So this is called a cross-site scripting vulnerability. And a cross-site scripting vulnerability, or XSS as they're referred to, is what happens when client-side code gets injected into the page unintentionally. So a lot of forums, like online forums or comment fields, are common attacks. Any forms that you fill out on a website that someone's going to look at are pretty common places for that sort of things to happen. For those sort of things to happen. Anywhere that you accept user input and are then showing it to someone else or to that user again, that's like a potential area for a cross-site scripting attack. And so what's happening with this one is, let's see if I got my, yeah, right, XSS attack, we got that. So the problem is, if you're logged into your WordPress site as an admin, right, you're checking, doing an audit, you're making sure that everything's kosher on your site, adding posts, whatever, and that shows up, and you didn't make it show up, that means that someone else made it show up. And if they can put that on your site like I did, which, I mean, if I can run this little bit of JavaScript to make an alert pop up, then I can run any bit of JavaScript that I want. And so that JavaScript can be hosted on my server, that JavaScript can be hosted, I can just dump it into the injection. I can just inject the malicious stuff to run whatever stuff. I can inject code to run other code, which is pretty common. A lot of times it'll be malware gets served with cross-site scripting attacks because you can automatically start a download on someone's computer. And so if you can do this little bit of JavaScript, and this is one command, it's just the alert function with whatever text you want to put in there. You can do that, you can run any other JavaScript on the site. So, now how did this one happen? Here's the disclosure of this one. This is from the Dewhurst security blog. They've got good stuff. But essentially what's happening is, I'll pull up the code since we can zoom in on that, is in LogonIser init.php, this one here, they've got this function, this LogonIser login failed. So when the login fails, then this is called, we need to update the database. And so, just like our last hack, does anyone see anything that kind of jumps out? I've got it bookmarked right here. This is the line. So they're checking if it's HTTP, HTTPS at first, right? And then whichever one they're putting that, they're adding that into the URL. They're also checking for the host, which would be your blog name, so hack.test. And then they're checking the request URI. And it might not be like intuitive, but the request URI, that is whatever the client is requesting from the server. So if I request an invalid URL, that's what request URI is. If I request BBB equals my JavaScript code, that's what the request URI is. And so that's what is being dropped into this URL variable here, which when we then search for, what is happening next? WPD query update. And then we just update the database with it. So they're taking that URL and they're just put it in the database. Let's throw it in there. And then it's going to show the latest IP. The next problem with it is then how that is shown. And that shows yeah, okay, same file. Way down here, this is the function that basically goes through and reads all of those things and then submits, or then shows it to the admin. And really all they're doing, this result, if it's empty, oh hey, no logs. Or let's iterate through each result, and then let's just take whatever we pulled from the database and show it directly to the user. So right here, the very last line, we're just taking that URL and we're just showing it. So when we do that, my browser then sees that script tag has been injected right into the HTML. And it just says, oh hey, this is a script tag, I know how to run these. Just like it would in the head or in the footer of your site. So it just runs that script, and then that JavaScript code is now running in your browser. Yeah?
Was there any manipulation of the data coming from at all in this? I didn't catch it.
It doesn't really look like there was. No. So this is one person running their plugin that has one handy dandy little feature. Just kind of, I think it was installed on like something like 10,000 sites. So not a lot of WordPress sites, but enough WordPress sites, right? Right. Yes. And once you get into that one, you can then use it for all sorts of other evil things. So
are you like embedding that JavaScript into the URL then?
Yes. So let me show you then what that looks like in Postman here. I'm gonna copy this for later use. But yeah, you can't really see here because this is awful stuff. But essentially,
like copy and paste it into like a text.
Yeah. Just do it right over here. Right. So this is the URL that we're hitting. We're just hitting the WP login. That is not having your login at WP login, and there's tons of other security plugins that'll help you there. So for an automated attack, they're going to try and just hit the WP login. It's probably a quick and dirty thing that they're throwing together, right? So if you're not there, then the server gets a 404 and it moves on to the next target. Maybe, if you're lucky. If you're a persistent attacker, then they do. And then we just inject a query string, because the query string is technically part of the request. And so it doesn't matter what this part is. This can be 1, 2, 3, but this part here, the value of our query string, this is where the problem is. This alert, and then we've got some escape slashes in there to make sure that our string goes through. But yeah, that's all it is that malicious code. If we wanted to run other malicious JavaScript, we would just put it right in there. So to show you then how this works, let's change this to act. And we can change our key here. So let's come back here, drop this down. We've updated the script. Now, you'll notice we're going to the WP login. How are we getting our data to the server? What we are doing is here, we're basically submitting the login form. Is all we have to do. Because they're taking our request URI and they're saving it into the database for us, we don't have to do anything. All we have to do is submit the form, and we don't want it to be a valid login attempt the first time because then our code wouldn't be on there. So once they log it, that gets put on. So all of these fields here are just to log, or to submit the form. There's like the username, the password, the redirect, which is a hidden input on there, and then the WP submit, which is another hidden input, but is also the button, and then the test cookie, which we just set the value of 1.
That's hilarious. So likely when you're getting attacked by this thing, they're probably not even just doing it once. You're probably going to go to this page and open it up, and it's probably going to open like 50 alert boxes or something on top of each other.
Right. Well, if they're smart and they know what they're doing, they're not opening any alert boxes. It's just happening in the background on your site. One of the worst things that they could be doing is lifting your cookies, because once they lift your cookies, they then have unlimited access to your admin panel. So you're logged into the site, and you stay logged in because you have cookies on your computer. Using JavaScript, they're able to read all of the cookies that you have, and so they could get your WordPress admin login. They could also go and lift your Facebook cookies, your Google Plus, if that's a thing anymore, Twitter, whatever, your email.
You can't read cookies from other websites.
I think they can.
Not in Chrome.
It might be that
I think it prevents you
latest.
from getting access to the other site's cookies.
Okay.
Chrome software.
Well, it used to be a possibility. Is a thing. Yeah. So.
The other danger is you can actually also start breaking form data that's submitted across sites, credit cards, stuff like that.
Oh yeah.
Another danger in fact, especially if you get something to run on those pages.
Right. Yeah, you could get some ugly. I mean, cross-site scripting is bad news for anyone that gets hit by one, because they've then run code on your machine. So
they're likely not going to just run an alert box. They're
No.
going to run some other JavaScript.
No, the alert box is just to show you that I can run JavaScript.
Right.
They're not showing you alerts. They're just doing the bad things in the behind the scenes so that you're not seeing anything. So let's. I changed a couple things. Let's make sure that this hack actually works. Because I was running through my talk earlier and apparently broke some things. So changed our query string right. Sorry that this is such terrible quality. Alright. I am running Debian unstable. So the latest release is Debian 10, which is codenamed Buster. And I'm running, there's like testing, unstable, and then stable. And I'm on unstable, which is right in the middle there. And I've been happy with it. I've had a couple of things break every now and then, but for the most part they get patched in the next day or two. So I'm very happy with it. Yeah. So here's our curl request then to go in and hack. This is a hack, right? We hit enter because Postman encodes my JavaScript code, and darn you, Postman, saved those poor people from us once again. Then we come back here and hacked. Right. You can see our query string. Oh, maybe you can't see it. But I did change it. It was originally BBB, B, and now it's 1, 2, 3. So the query string, the key doesn't matter. It's the value that's being read. So. Where are we at here? So let's take a look then at. Oh, we already looked at that, didn't we? Right? Yeah, we looked at that. So an easy fix. WordPress has an easy fix for this one too. If you're handling URLs coming from users, you can take this escape URL function. This is a this is a WordPress core function. It's right there in the docs. All I have to do, pass in a URL, and then it'll sanitize them for you. So then, once you put that, this is the fix that the developer did implement. This is what they added, and really all they had to do is on that one URL variable, just kind of wrap the whole thing up before you go injecting it into the database. And that way nobody's going to see the dirty, evil version. They'll see the sanitized version instead, which is basically what Postman was sending. So Postman's an Electron app, which means that it runs on Chrome's engine, whatever.
Chromium.
Yeah. So Electron is based on top of Chromium or whatever.
The browser embedded into it.
Right. So it's a browser that does some. It has a different UI. Basically, is what it does. So yeah, that's a quick, easy fix for this plugin. I'm sorry? Oh, the tool that I'm using to show these, Postman. This is, like we were saying, this is essentially a browser. Once you make a post, you can even view HTML in it. So if you make a post, like a request to a web page, it'll show it there at the bottom in the preview panel. But it's an Electron app, so it'll run on Linux, it'll run on Windows, it'll run on Mac, it'll run on everything. So
basically, Electron allows you to create desktop applications using
HTML and CSS. So right. So let's go back down here to this guy. I'm actually going to close this. Computer might be struggling. All right. So now for the WordPress core hack. This, like I said, this is WordPress 4.7, which I just looked up, and it came out in like 2016, and this is when they released the REST API. So the REST API, if you're not familiar, it enables you to use the back end of WordPress without having to use the front end of WordPress. Some people don't like how WordPress themes are handled. Some people don't like the plugins. Blah blah blah. It's all icky. It's PHP. Ugh. So the REST API enables you to then use React or use Angular or use whatever framework, cool toy that you used last year and are not going to use ever again. You can then use the WordPress backend for user management, for posts, for page, for all of that stuff. And so it's just JSON back and forth is what it does. You send JSON, you say, hey, I want to see pages. And the WordPress REST API then responds with, all right, here's all the pages, or here's all the posts, or here's how you update, here's how you log in. So, yeah. So that is that. Anybody in the WP Omaha Slack channel? Yeah?
That was cool.
Okay. So in the Slack channel, if you're not in there and you are interested in this stuff, this is entertaining for you. Dana Reeves, one of the other organizers, brought to light a site that she was using, WP Curve. And WP Curve is owned by GoDaddy. And she mentioned it in our Slack channel, and I felt the need to call them out on Twitter about it, because this is what their blog looked like earlier this week. Like 3 days ago. This is what was on their blog.
This was a few days ago. It was pretty funny.
Yeah.
They fixed it and it got back to that stuff.
Okay, so I looked at it, and I saw a cached version at first that showed all these same things, and then I reloaded without my cache and didn't see it anymore. And I saw
24 hours later, it's back.
Okay, so there's some exploit that they have. Full disclosure, the hack I'm going to show you is not this hack. The hack that I'm going to show you will let you do the same thing, but they are running at least version 4.99 because I checked, and so they don't have this particular vulnerability, but this vulnerability would let you do the exact same thing to a site, so long as you know the post over something else. So yeah, I called them out on Twitter. I had a lot of fun with that. I was a little disappointed when you said that they had cleaned it up and I didn't get a tweet back from them saying, hey, thanks, or anything like that. Just keep advertising your mail order brides, I guess. So yeah, that's the hack.
Shows how often they blog on that site.
Right, yeah.
Just another website
For-
that has a blog on it for no reason.
For a premium WordPress support agency, you'd think they'd do it a little more often. Yeah, okay, so our hack. Here is, I could run WP scan again and show you, oh, this vulnerability is in there, but this is that vulnerability. This is the one that would be pulled up. We'd also have to dig through 49 other vulnerabilities. So, essentially, what's happening is you can go into the REST API and you can just change content. It's super simple.
On the server? Like, saved into the database?
All right. So first I'll show you in Postman. God, I wish I could make this bigger. I should have double checked this. So the WordPress REST API. Essentially, to access the REST API, you go to wp-json/v2. You can get all the posts just by hitting this with a GET request. It'll just return posts to you. So we do that, and it doesn't even have to be a post request either. It's just a GET, because that's what a simple browser would do, or a Web3 browser would do. And what do we get back? We get a bunch of JSON. We only have one post on our site though, so we're only going to get the one post. But right there, we're looking at the ID of the post, which we don't have exposed, but if you were to open up, like, if you were to inspect element on the web page, you'd probably be able to find it in some WordPress classes, CSS classes somewhere. So, we've got the ID for the post, and okay. I wanted to show, so a lot of these releases come from Security. They're like a security company. If you're interested in WordPress security, you know, check them out. I don't work for them or anything, but they had this awesome post that walked me through the whole thing. So check this out. If you're looking for a more in-depth look at what's happening with this one, I'd go back and read these posts. If you guys are interested, I can put a link to the talk in the Slack channel or something, so you can read through them all later on. But we'll just drop on over here. We'll hit. All right. So, like it said, with the update, right? We can update the content of any post that we want, and we do so by hitting the REST API. So the REST API has got this handy little handler in there. And it's all the way, well, it's this file. There's my stuff. WP includes REST-API. What did I say? Endpoints, right. And so the endpoint that we want is this posts controller one. So it says post somewhere around here. But dang, there's stuff to read.
That's the one right above there. Yeah.
Right, okay, so that's the one that we're on. So here's where it gets registered. Here's where all the functions get registered. Here's where the REST API takes off with an update. And so you'll see here we've got this callback, and that's just going to call the function update item. But before it does that, it's going to do a permissions callback. And that permissions callback, which we haven't seen issues with permissions checks before, is just this update item permissions check, right? So they have a permissions check in there. It's just not a very good one. So what does it do? Right away, for getting a post, it grabs it by whatever ID you're passing it. And the REST API is kind of funny in that it handles your whatever you are sending via the GET or POST. So if you have a query string with an ID specified, it's going to prefer that over whatever you drop into the URL. So you can do get posts/15 to get our post, and that'll just return the content for that post. Or you can do get posts or get posts / with a query string ID equals 15, and you can pull it up that way. Or if you're clever, you can do it with both to circumvent their permissions check, which is essentially what's happening here. If we pass in a post ID, it'll get that post. But what if we pass in something that's not a post ID? Like, not an integer, because that would just check for a post. But if you pass in A, B, C, D, E, F, get post, what it ends up doing, it calls get instance, it calls some other things, it returns null if there is no post, right? So it's not, and if this post is null, I don't know if you can tell, there's 4 checks in here, but there are 0 checks for whether the post is null or not. They're checking if post exists and if you have update permissions. They're checking.
Wait, isn't null falsy though? Or am I
in an if, yeah, but they're just checking if that, and they're not checking for. If they wanted to check if this was null, this would have to be like not post, and it would say that not would then, like with the exclamation, that would then invert the post to be true, and then it would run the code. But because post is null, this if doesn't get run. So this doesn't happen.
Right.
So we're not throwing any WP arrows because post is null. We're not even sending an author. We're not logged in. So this never gets run. We're not sending this sticky parameter, so this never gets run. We're not a current user.